School doesn't teach us how to learn. It only gives us things to learn. And that's incredibly frustrating because you and I are the ones that experience the ramification of this serious problem. You see, I bet all of you up to this point have just resorted to doing what everyone else around you has done in terms of your coursework, and that's go to class half asleep, come out of it barely understanding what the teacher has just said, and definitely not remembering anything that the teacher has just said. And then when it comes down to your exams, you find yourself cramming for all the days leading up to them, growing in frustration, in anguish, in stress, in turmoil, feeling this immense pressure on your shoulders. And the pinnacle of these negative emotions is reached the moment you come to the realization that, oh my goodness, this isn't even revision anymore. It's me literally learning the information for the very first time. You can see how that's a serious problem, right? Because then what was the point of everything that you've just done up to this point? What was the point of even going to class? If you're going to have to teach yourself now anyways, you put in all this effort, this time, this energy throughout that cramming period, and none of that even showcases itself in your grades. None of it. Because yeah, you might be able to answer the simple definition questions, but if you haven't learned the information to the depth necessary to notice the linkages, to notice the intricacies, the complexities, and you get to your inferential questions on your exams, those ones that require application of knowledge and synthesis of knowledge, you're definitely not going to be able to answer those properly. I guarantee it, unless you're able to somehow guess on those, which is highly unlikely. You're not going to be able to do well on those exams. So I guess that actually makes sense. You're going to get ordinary grades by doing ordinary things, but it's not your fault because you haven't been taught how to be extraordinary. You haven't been taught how to do it properly. And so yeah, of course you can resort to everything that everyone else is doing, but you shouldn't be doing that because then you're gonna get your grades back. You're going to see all that red ink. You're gonna feel so demoralized and you're going to start limiting yourself. You're gonna start thinking, yeah, you know what? First of all, I'm not gonna go to class anymore, or if attendance is required, I'm just not going to listen. I'm gonna do other work in it. And then I'm just going to have to teach myself all this material again, but it is what it is. But obviously I can't do that well in it. So I'm just going to decrease my expectations. And so then you get stuck in this loophole. You start to limit yourself. You start to be in this negative cycle, and then it becomes even harder when you get into later years in university, when you have more harder classes simultaneously. And so good luck trying to cram for all of those while learning the information for the very first time without that seriously affecting your mental health and your physical health. It's a serious problem, and it's not something that you have to go through. And I'm sorry, I'm so sorry that you've had to do that so far in your life, but it can be different. It should be different. You are powerful beyond measure. You have so much potential as a student, as someone that wants to go into whatever profession that you want to do. You can do it, and you can be amazing at it, and you can still have time for a social life. You can have time for your passions, your hobbies. You can do it all. I promise you. What you need right now is a system, a learning system. What you need right now is a series of steps, ones that have been highly researched to be able to help you perform better, so that all you have to do, you don't need motivation, you don't need inspiration, you don't need to have that immense pressure on you that procrastination brings about for you to start doing work. No, you just follow the steps. So the purpose is you make use, you optimize, you extract, you are able to make the most out of every learning experience before an exam. So when it comes down to those exams, you're able to answer all of those questions, no matter how difficult it is, because you've processed the information properly. My most recent video was about my own learning system. It's done tremendously well, and it seems to have helped many of you guys because I've gone on countless lives in just the last few days and have answered so many of you guys' DMs asking questions about it as you apply it to your own coursework. Because the stages themselves are pretty straightforward and simple. There's 4 of them. There's your priming, there's your in-class notes, there's your post-class immediate review, and there's your revision. But each of them have their own layers to it, and the more you apply yourself to it, you're just naturally going to have questions if it's your first time doing it. So actually, let me give you a little bit of a recap for those that haven't watched the video. Again, I highly recommend you do, because that example that we go through is going to help you tremendously in terms of understanding it, not just hearing it, but actually visualizing and seeing how this works. But in general, the priming stage is where we first understand the big picture of the topic before ever having going into our classes. Why? Well, it's because our brain's ability to deeply understand information and then remember it is greatly enhanced when there are more relevant connections to it. So by going into our classes already having this established foundation, all the new details that we learn in class will be able to serve a function in that big picture. It will immediately have meaning. It will have those linkages to those big picture pieces. And it's incredibly helpful for you in terms of, again, quickly processing it and deeply processing it and then being able to retain it all. So in the priming stage, there was your diagram number 1, where you're chunking the information into groups and then you're relating them together in a way that's relevant to you. And the second part of your priming stage is to do your pre-test questions. And this, again, is to further analyze how the different concepts come together to solve problems. And you're not expected to get these questions right. You'll get some of them right if you deeply understood previous concepts and previous topics. But here, even if you get it wrong, you're able to leverage the hypercorrection effect in class. And you're more aware of the things that you got wrong, and you're able to be more focused in your attention. And so then you go into your class. And so that's stage number 2, your in-class notes. And there's 3 parts to that. There's diagram number 2. So you're just basically annotating on top of your first diagram. You're going and making key observations, and you're also creating active recall questions for your review after class. And so within those 3 components of your in-class notes, you'll be able to encapsulate all the information in a way that's effective and in a way that will allow you to create those linkages, right? So that you're able to remember the information and process it. And then in the third stage, it's that immediate review. It's for you to go ahead and clean up your in-class notes, but majority of that time is spent doing your active recall questions with the main objective here to, of course, consolidate the information that you do remember and that you're able to get right on your active recall questions, but also to identify your weaknesses here, right? So you can better target your extensive revision in stage 4 better. So when you get into your revision, which is your final stage, you're not going to be utilizing those passive techniques, and you're not going to be learning the information for the first time because you've made use of those first 3 stages to really understand the topic to a really good depth. But yeah, of course, there's going to be certain things that you're weak at this point, and so that's where you're understanding your gaps of knowledge. So the first part of this last stage is to optimize your diagram. It's to create diagram number 3, and this is where you're really simplifying and reorganizing the information on the diagram so that it can be a resource for you, where you're able to look at it and immediately understand the logic it portrays. And then part 2 of the final stage is to do your active recall applications. Now, this is the best way to revise, right? No more passive techniques. This is the best way to accurately identify your weaknesses and to consolidate the information in a way that's meaningful, right? So what you're going to do is first your blurting method, and then your Feynman technique, and then the use of practice tests. So as you've gone through those 4 stages, you'll have found that you've actually learned the information properly and made use of each of the stages in the way that the class has been structured, right? You've made use of the time before class, you've made use of the time during class, you've made use for the time after class, and you've made use of your revision in a way that's efficient and effective. And I really do believe that you should be adopting those 4 stages. And it's actually been such a cool experience in just the last week, seeing how much it's helped you guys already. I've been getting all these DMs of people taking images of all their 4 stages in their notebooks and asking me questions about it, and it's incredible. And people have even taken their first quizzes after it, and they're like, yeah, this is working for me. Like, I understand why you're saying all this stuff, and I can't wait to apply it for my future classes and my future topics. And I'm like, phenomenal, that's exactly what I wanted. You see, I'm a biomedical engineering major, and when I first got into college, I felt all those ramifications that we were just talking about early in this video. I didn't know how to learn properly. I had some idea from high school research and my high school mentors, but I didn't really have a true understanding of it. And it wasn't just that my grades weren't up to my own expectations, but it was what I was sacrificing to get those grades. I didn't have a social life. I didn't have time for my own passions or my own hobbies. I definitely didn't have any time to think about outside projects or businesses that I wanted to start. It was just school. It was just school. It was just school on a daily basis. I wasn't able to do anything on the weekends, and I wasn't even getting the grades that I wanted to get. It was only when I was just sick and tired of this, I was just so genuinely upset at the fact that I didn't know how to do it properly, that I had done a lot of research during that summer of my freshman year. And after having done the research and having spent the 2-3 years afterwards really practicing everything that I've learned. So it's not enough for you to learn the concepts, right? It's not enough for you to learn the strategies, but you need to tone it. You need to further develop it so that it works well for you. And I did that. And as a biomedical engineer, you have so many different types of classes, right? So in the beginning, I was having all these general classes that included even English classes, right? A lot of math classes, a whole ton of science classes. And so there's a mix of practical, there's a mix of procedural, there's a mix of conceptual classes that I was taking. And as I was developing this learning system, I wanted it to be able to do well in all those types of classes. And I found that it did just that after a lot of trial and error. And it's because of that learning system that now I find myself about to graduate here in a few months as a Dean's List student with not just my bachelor's, but I've also decided to pursue my master's at the same time. So I'll be graduating with both degrees. And I've also concentrated in neuroengineering, which I've always wanted to do, but I thought it was way too hard for me, but I've done exceptionally well in those classes as well. And not to mention that I've still had time for all of my fitness hobbies. I've had time for everything that I wanted to do in my social life. I've had time to start businesses and be successful in them. It's because I've learned that you can make the most out of all those learning experiences within those 4 stages. You're able to optimize them so that you are able to perform well. Now, although the YouTube video about my learning system came out a little over a week ago, I've been talking about the learning system within my content on Instagram and on TikTok for over a year now, and I've seen it have such tremendous impact on you guys. But I've also realized that it's not as intuitive for you to apply. I've gone through my own trial and error for such a long time, and I've gone through the research for such a long time to the point that now it feels very natural to me. And as I explain it to you, that you understand it, but of course there's going to be some difficulties when applying it to your own course load. And so I did something about that, and I've hinted at it, and I've talked to many of you about it behind the scenes because it was such an important passion project for me. I wanted to make it easy for you guys to go throughout this learning system, having a resource that will become your everyday tool. It's something that you can use on every stage, that you'll have as this incredible resource for yourself because it consists of cues that you made. And I know that some of you are already aware of this passion project of mine because, to be honest, it's really hard to keep under wraps. I'm usually transparent with you guys and it means so much to me. So yeah, might have slipped a few times on lives, and I know, team, that you guys are watching this. I apologize. I know that I wasn't supposed to do that. But this took me over a year to perfect. This took me over several months to adopt into my own course load and to actually use it to make sure that it's everything that I want it to be, to make sure that it encapsulates and facilitates every part of the learning system, and that it could be usable by anybody of all knowledge backgrounds. I wanted to make sure it was that good, and I really do believe that my team and I got this one right. I don't think it, I know it. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you finally the learning system. This book will change your life. This book is meant to be your everyday tool. This book is meant to be carried to all of your classes to help you learn all of your topics in a way that's effective and it's efficient. This book is meant to be your #1 resource whenever you're reviewing past topics. The way that it's structured is first introducing to you important learning strategies, and then secondly, going over how to use the learning system, and then 3, providing an example of me filling out the learning system, and then 4, a ton of workbook pages for you to fill out your own learning system. So it has prompts, it has space allocated for it, it has a specific framework for you to follow for each of the 4 stages, so it makes it really simple, and that you'll have all of that in one book. And then finally, it supplements with additional resources for students. It's available in 3 gorgeous colors with A beautiful design, by the way, that took me forever to do. And it just feels amazing in hand. It's not too heavy, so it's not gonna feel like a textbook where you're lugging it around, but it's also doesn't feel cheap. It feels like good quality material so that it's not going to get messed up in your bag or anything of that sort. Trust me, I'm very reckless with my own backpack, and it's withstood my own reckless behavior, so I'm sure that it'll be fine for you guys too. If you want one, and I cannot believe I could finally say this, the pre-orders are live now, but it's only for a very limited time. Tuesday, November 28th is the final day that we're taking pre-orders, and it's only with the pre-orders that you're able to do two things. Number one, guarantee that you'll get one because it's a physical product and we have to have them in stock. I have no idea how quickly they're going to sell out, and I assume that's pretty fast, but also I have no idea if we're ever going to be restocking them and doing this again. So this may be a limited thing that we do. So you'll guarantee that you get one with the pre-orders. And then number two, you'll guarantee the cheapest price. For Black Friday, we are discounting it. So again, the final day will be this upcoming Tuesday, November 28th. And for those that follow me on Instagram already know this, but there was a lot of requests for me to extend the 40% sale that we had for the Guide to Academic Success. And my team was very kind enough to do that for me, even at 1 a.m. when I requested it. So that's continuing on. And the Guide to Academic Success is very different from the learning system. The learning system is a much more scoped down, much more narrowed version of the learning component, so how to get good grades. The Guide to Academic Success is more of a comprehensive look at the whole academic career. And then it goes into other pieces of information that will help you stand out outside of the classroom, including career development stuff in terms of resume writing and interview tips. If you're interested in that, the 40% off discount code remains for it. So now up to this point, I hope that you understand what the learning system is meant for. You understand the value of each of the stages, and you're able to start applying it to your own course load. And if you want a way to facilitate it, you can use my learning system book. But if you want to just do it yourself and get a crack at it, that's entirely okay too. I wish you guys all the very best of luck. Everything here is meant so that you can maximize your potential. You can unlock your potential. You can stop limiting yourself and actually be able to get out of life everything that you want from it. I really do believe that you can do it, and I've made it my life's mission to get you there. So until next time, please take care. And of course, I'll see you guys all at the top.